Creflo, calm body, unless you're raising your hand. What is a Hooverville? Ari, go.
Hooverville is a place where Bud and his friend go to find the train to go on for that they can leave their homes because they don't want to be with them, and Hooverville is kind of like a town where many people live, where many poor people live, because this was the time like when something tragic was happening.
What was life like in the Hoovervilles? Brian?
What was it? It was like what it was like. It was bad at that time because Buddy, he was homeless and I forgot.
Okay, can anybody help Brian out? What was life like in the Hoovervilles? Mariano?
Life was like, it was not like that good because like in the Hoovervilles they had to like use their clothes in like these hot pots, and then they didn't get to use like what we use now because of the segregation, how people they didn't pay their taxes, so some people kicked them out the country.
Okay, when I say what life is like in the Hooverville, I just mean like, how did the people feel? What was life like for them every day? What are some things they had or did not have? I'll call on one more scholar to give us, this is based on the information you guys learned from the nonfiction text in your last Read Aloud lesson. Just what was life like for somebody who lived in a Hooverville? What were their daily experiences? Go for Shadera.
Life was because they had to wash their clothes by putting hot water and boil them, and like they were homeless, and they didn't, because they didn't have any family to live with.
Yeah, life was really hard for people in the Hoovervilles. It was kind of like a rundown little put together town where they had limited resources and limited opportunities. So we're going to use this information that we learned from the nonfiction text to develop our understanding of the setting of chapter 8. When I share my screen with you, you'll be able to see the text and follow along. You do not need any materials for Read Aloud. You don't need your packet, you don't need pencil, you don't need paper. All you need is a calm body like Aishata's, a calm body like Krishlin's, and a calm body like Ryan's. Nice work sitting up now. Alrighty, sharing my screen now. Okay, chapter 8. Now, before we start reading, what is setting? Go for Nasaya.
Setting is a place where when the story takes a place.
Exactly. And we know from our prior knowledge that most of this chapter will take place in Hooverville. But as we're reading, I want you to think about how the setting is changing throughout the story and how each setting helps us understand that part of the text. Alrighty, following along as I read. Joseph looks like he's focused. Evangeline looks focused. What's that? Yannick looks focused. Okay, getting ready to start reading. Chapter 8. Something stepped on a little stick. As soon as the twig cracked, my eyes snapped open and I was wide awake. I held my breath and kept still as I could. Whatever it was that was sneaking up on me knew I'd woke up because it stopped moving and kept as still as it could too. Even though my head was still under my blanket, I could feel two eyes staring at me real hard. And I knew though these weren't critter eyes, these eyes made the hair on the back of my neck raise up the way only human being eyes can do. Without jiggling or wiggling around too much under my blanket, I got my fingers wrapped around my jackknife. Right when I was ready to push the covers off of me and start running or stabbing, whoever it was that had been watching jumped right on top of me. I was as trapped as a roach under a dish. I think it should say trapped. I was as trapped as a roach under a dish rag. I tried to guess the exact spot that the person's heart was at, then pulled my knife back. A voice said, "If you ain't a kid called Brad from the house, I'm really sorry about jumping on you like this." It was Bugs. When I tried to talk, it felt like I had to suck all the air out of Flint. I finally got breathing right and said, "Doggone it, Bugs, it is me. You nearly scared me to death." He got off of me and I threw the blanket over to the side. "You don't know how lucky you are. I was just about fixing to stab you in the heart." Bugs looked like he knew he had a real close call. He said, "I'm sorry, bud. I didn't mean to scare you, but everybody knows how you like to sleep with that knife open, so I figured I'd best grab hold of you so you wouldn't wake up slicing nobody. Shucks. Even though it was Bugs who had come real close to getting his heart poked, I was the one who was still having trouble catching my breath. I asked, how come you aren't back at the home? But before he had a chance to answer, I knew, you're on the lam. So let's pause here. What's the setting in this part of the story? Go for Creflo.
The setting.
I'm sorry, Creflo, I'm gonna pause you for a second. So as much as I would like to give everybody the opportunity to be unmuted, I think it's a challenge because the background noise so I will mute you all again, but I will unmute you when I need to call on you. I didn't think about the background noise and I was okay, I didn't think about the background noise. Go ahead, Creflo.
So the setting is that, well, it said that the setting was that is in that they're in the lamb.
Okay, let's have somebody go ahead.
It says that they're in the lamb.
Well, let's have somebody evaluate you, Creflo. What do you guys think? I see Mariaru responding. What do you think, Camilla?
I respectfully disagree with you, Creflo, because I don't think he's in a lamb. Cause my evidence it said that.
Do you need me to scroll back up, Camilla?
Yeah. I respectfully disagree with you, Creflo, because I don't think he's in a lamb. I think he's in he's in still in the, what was it called, Luberland something?
Mm-hmm. The Hooverville?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
what's your evidence?
My evidence was it's in the preview paragraphs.
The previous paragraphs?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're thinking about what you know from the previous paragraphs that he ended up there. Well, let's look specifically at the first line in chapter 8. Something stepped on a little stick. As soon as the twig cracked, my eyes snapped open and I was wide awake. Where do you think he could be right now? Calling on a different scholar now? Go for Yannick.
I think where Bud is right now is outside.
Bud is still outside. And if you look at the paragraph previously, he's under his little tree in his little section. Alrighty, let's keep reading and let's think about how this setting helps to develop the rest of this part of the story. Where were we? On the lamb. Okay, Bugs said, yep, I'm going back to riding rails. When I heard about you beating that kid up so bad that you had to take off, I figured it was time for me to get going too. I thought you might be hanging around the library, so I come down to see if you wanted to go with me. Where are you heading? There's always fruits to be picked out west. I heard we can make enough money to get by out there. There's supposed to be a train leaving sometime tomorrow. Did you really beat that kid up in the foster home? I said, uh-huh. We kind of had a fight. How long does it take to get out west? Bugs said, depends on how many trains you gotta hop. Was he really 2 years older than you? Uh-huh, he was 12. It is fun to hop a train. Some of the time it is, some of the time it's scary. We heard he was kind of big too. Was he? He said, I said, he was pretty big. I can't see how we can hop on a train. They look like they're moving pretty doggone fast. Bug said, most times you don't hop them when they're going fast. Most times you try to climb on one when it's sitting in the train yard. Did the guy cry after you whooped him? Well, kind of. He looked real scared, then told his mama to keep me away from him. They even said I was a hoodlum. Will we be sleeping on the train and everything? Sure we will. Some of the time the train don't stop for 2 or 3 days. Man, I always try to tell people that just because someone's skinny, it don't mean they can't fight. You're a hero now, bud. Is he? No, I didn't really do nothing much. Well, how about the toilet? How are you going to use the toilet if the train doesn't stop? Bug said, you just kind of lean out the door and go. When the train is still moving, yeah, you get a real nice breeze. Oh man, that sounds great. Count me in. I can't wait. Now, Shadera, I'm having a similar reaction to yours. Evangeline, you too. Bug spit a big glob of slob in his hand and said, I knew I could depend on you, Bud. I spit a big glob in my hand and said, we're brothers forever, Bugs. We slapped our hands together as hard as we could and got our globs mixed up real good, then waved them in the air so they'd dry. Now it was official. I finally had a brother. Bug said, we'll go down to the mission. There's bound to be someone there that knows about where we can hop this train. Then we'll be on the lam together. We found out that we'd have to go to a city called Hooperville, just outside of Flint. The only trouble was nobody knew exactly where Hooverville was. It was dark before we found out the right direction. I had never heard of a city that was so doggone hard to find. We walked on a trail through some woods that ran right up against Thread Creek. We could tell we were going to get close to Hooverville because we heard somebody playing a mouth organ and the smell of food cooking was getting stronger. We kept walking in the direction that the sky was glowing with an orangish light. When we could hear the music real clear and folks talking to each other and the sound of sticks cracking in a fire, we started cutting through the woods. That way we could peek into Hooverville first. We looked out from behind a big tree and saw that a big wind or even 2 or 3 big wolves huffing and puffing real hard could blow Hooverville into the next county. It was a bunch of huts and shacks thrown together out of pieces of boxes and wood and cloth. The Amos's shed would have looked like a real fancy house here. All right, what's our new setting? Participation from Yannick, Mariadu, and Kreflo have been strong. I need some new hands. Okay, let's go to Nene. What's the setting, Nene? Sorry, I lost you.
I think the setting right now, since they're saying they're gonna move, I think they're gonna go to the train station because they said they wanted to go somewhere where they're free, So I think right now they're at the train station.
Evaluate, Nene. That they're at the train station. Go for Zainab.
I disagree with you, Nene, because I think they at Hooverville because the text says we looked out from behind the big tree and saw the big winds or even 2 or 3 big wolves huffing and puffing real hard could blow Hoover into the next country.
Yeah. Sorry, Zainab, go ahead.
I'm done.
Oh, yeah, previously Bud was sort of on his own. He's sleeping outside under a tree. And now that he and Bud have reunited, they're actually on their way to an actual Hooverville. Wait, is that his friend's name? No, his friend's is Bugs, he's Bud. Okay, so as we're reading, think about how the fact that they're in a Hooverville will impact the plot of a story and how what happens next might be different if they weren't in a Hooverville. All right, who do I need to mute? Is it Zainab? Okay, alrighty. Right near our tree was the big fire that had been lighting up the sky. It looked like 100 people were sitting around it, watching things burn or waiting for the food cooking in 3 big pots set up in the fire. There were 2 little fires burning in Hooverville. One had a pot that was big enough to boil a whole person in it. A man was stirring things in the pot with a big stick, and when he raised the stick up, he'll pull some breeches or a shirt out and pass it over to a white man who was hanging the clothes on a line to dry. There was a mountain of clothes on the ground next to him waiting on their turn. The other fire in Hooverville was real small. It was off to the side by itself. There were 5 white people sitting at this fire, 2 kids, a man, and a woman, holding a little wrapped up baby. The baby sounded like all those new sick babies at home. It was coughing like it was a half-dead little animal. Bugs whispered, shoot, this ain't no city. This is just another cardboard jungle. A what? A cardboard jungle. Somewhere you can get off the train and clean up and get something to eat. without the cops chasing you out of town. I said, well, what are we going to do? We can't just go busting into the city and expect someone to feed us, can we? Bugs said, one of us has got to talk to them. Let's flip for it. Okay. Bugs rumbled around in his pocket and found a penny. He rubbed it up against his britches and said, heads I win, tails you lose. Okay. He flipped the penny up into the air and caught it, then slapped it down on the back of his left hand. He peeked underneath his right hand to see a big smile, and a big smile cracked his face. Shucks. Bugs said, tails, you lose. Dang, so what should I say? Ask them if this is Hooverville. See if they can get any extra food. I moved up from behind our tree and walked over toward the biggest fire. I waited until some folks noticed me, then said, excuse me, is this here Hooperville? The man who was playing the mouth organ stopped and everyone else around the fire looked up at me. One of the white men said, what is it you're looking for? I said, a city called Hooperville, sir. They all laughed. The mouth organ man said, nah, son, what you're looking for is Hooverville with a V, like in President Herbert Hoover. I said, oh, is this it, sir? The man said, this is one of them. I said, one of them? He answered, they're all over the country. This here is the Flint version. And all of them are called Hooverville? That's right, Mr. Hoover works so hard at making sure every city has got one that it seems like it would be criminal to call them anything else. Someone said, that's the truth. I said, well, how are we going to know if we're in the right one? The mouth organ man said, are you hungry? Yes, sir. Are you tired? Yes, sir. Are you scared about what's going to happen tomorrow? I didn't want anyone to think I was a baby, so I said, not exactly scared, sir. Maybe I am a little bit nervous. The man smiled and said, well, son, any place where there are other folk in need of the same things that you are is the right place to be. This is exactly the Hooverville you're looking for. I knew what the man was trying to say. This was the exact same kind of circle talking and cross talking that Mama used to do. Bugs hadn't had that kind of practice. He came from behind the tree and said, I don't get it. You said there were Hoovervilles all over the place. What if we was looking for the Hooverville in Detroit or Chicago? How could this be the right one to be in? The man said, you boys from Flint? I said, yes, sir. The man waved his mouth organ like a magic wand and pointed it all over the little cardboard city. Boys, he said, look around you. The city was bigger than I thought it was. The raggedy little huts were in every direction you looked, and there were more people sitting around than I first thought too. Mostly it was men and boys, but there were a couple of women every now and then, and a kid or two. There were all the colors you could think of, black, white, and brown, but the fire made everyone look like they were different shades of orange. There were dark orange folks sitting next to medium orange folks, sitting next to light orange folks. All these people, the mouth organ man said, are just like you. They're tired, hungry, and a little bit nervous about tomorrow. This here is the right place for y'all to be because we're all in the same boat. And you boys are nearer to home than you'll ever get. Someone said, amen, brother. The mouth organ man said, it don't matter if you're looking for Chicago or Detroit or Orlando or Oklahoma City. I rode the rails to all of them. You might think or you might hear that things are better just down the line, but they're singing the same sad song all over this country. Believe me, son, being on the road is no good. If you two boys are from Flint, this is the right Hooverville for you. Someone said, brother, why don't we feed these boys? That one looks like he ain't eaten in 2 or 3 months. Shucks, he didn't have to point or nothing. Everyone knew who he meant, but I didn't care. The food was bubbling up in those 3 big pots, even sounded delicious. The mouth organ man said, you're welcome to join us, but we all pitch in here. So unless either one of you is carrying one of them smoked West Virginia hammies in the bags, it looks like you'll be pulling KP tonight. I said, pulling what, sir? He said, KP, kitchen please. You do the cleanup after everyone's had their fill. There are a couple of other young folks who'll show you what you have to do. Me and Bugs both said, yes, sir. This seemed like a real good trade. A woman handed me and Bugs each a flat, square, empty tin can. That, my lords, is your china. Please be careful not to chip it. My china had the words jumbo A&P sardines stamped into the bottom of it. She handed us 2 beat up old spoons and said, don't be shy. You two just about missed supper. You'd best hurry up. She took us over to one of the big pots and filled up our tin plates. You're lucky, she said. It's muskrat stew and there's plenty left over tonight. Eat as much as you can. The stew was made out of dandelion greens and a couple of potatoes and some wild carrots and some crawdads and a couple little chunks of meat. It tasted great. We both even got seconds. Let's stop here. So we said earlier that the setting is the Hooverville and the author continued to develop the setting. How is this setting of the Hooverville impacting the plot of the story? Seeing Creflo's hand again, Francelise participating, Jalen participating. Let's go to Markel. How is the setting impacting the plot of the story, Markel?
The setting is impacting the plot of the story because because now now they found it, and now they have food. They have food to eat because now that they found Hooverville, or the Hooverville that they have right now, they get to have food and not be starving, so that they can stay safe, and also that they're all in the same boat, so it doesn't matter where you go.
How would the plot of the story be different if the setting had changed, or if the setting was not in a Hooverville? Jalen?
Um, this the story would change by if they weren't in that Hooperville. I feel like they probably wouldn't have food to eat, and they probably would have still been on the run.
Add on, Ivanka?
I agree with Jalen, but I want to add on to her. Maybe like the way the people dressed would be different, and the type of food they had would be different, and probably the way their houses looked, and probably like their habits and what they do would be different if it was in a different place.
And one more, go for Liana. I saw you partially agreeing.
I partially agree with Ivanka because since they were kind of like the people that they met were kind of like poor too, because like they had like they have food, and if they were in a different place, they probably people wouldn't have like gave them anything.
Okay, alrighty. Okay, so as we can see, the setting of the story is really, really important because it directly impacts the plot of the story. Markel said earlier that one of the biggest problems in the story is because of the times. It's really hard, and because of the fact that he has no family or no one to really turn to. Bud is hungry, he's homeless, and now he and Bugs end up in this Hooverville where they actually finally get food. If the setting was different, maybe they might not have gotten food, maybe their situation could have gotten worse, or maybe their situation would have gotten better in a different way. All right, how are we doing on time? All right, we have about 10 more minutes of Read Aloud. Let's see if we can wrap up this chapter before then. Okay, we're at when we were done. When we were done, the woman told us, "You boys leave your bags here. It's time to do the dishes now." "Uh-oh, ma'am, I like to keep my suitcase with me wherever I go. I promise you your suitcase will be safe here." I remembered the Amosons had promised the same thing. I said, "You watch it yourself, ma'am. You'll make sure no one looks inside of it." She said, "Son, we don't have no thieving in here. We all look out for each other." I said, "Thank you, ma'am," and put my suitcase down near the woman's feet. Me, Bugs, a little white boy, and a little girl loaded a whole mess of dirty tin cans and spoons and a couple of real plates and forks into a big wooden box and lugged them down to Thread Creek. The little girl had been in Hooverville the longest, so she got to tell the rest of us what to do. She said, "I don't suppose neither one of you new boys knows how to do dishes the right way, do you?" Me and Bugs had done tons of dishes in the home, so I said, "Sure we do. We used to be real good at cleaning up." Bugs said, "Damn, girl, you act like this is the first cardboard jungle I've been in. I know you do dishes at here." She said, "Okay then, we'll split them up, you and you." She pointed at Bugs and the other kid. "Can do half, and me and this boy can do the others. What's your name?" I said, "Bud, not Buddy." She said, "I'm Deeza Malone." Silent hand if you read Deeza's book. There's another book by the same author, which tells a similar story from Deeza's perspective. Okay, Jalen's read it, Mariaru. All right, well, when we get back to our classrooms, if you find it in the library, it'd be a great book to read because you'd have Bud's perspective, and then you'd be able to get Deeza's perspective as well. Okay, back to the text. Deeza handed Bugs and the other little boy some rags and some soap powder, and they started splashing the dishes in the water. Me and the girl walked a little further up the creek and started unloading the rest of the dishes. "You dry, I'll wash," she said. She handed me a rag, and just as soon as she had splashed one of the tin cans in the water and give it to me, I'd dry it and stick it in the wooden box. She said, "Where you say it was from?" "Flint, right there. So you and your friend come down here to get on that train tomorrow?" "Where's it going?" "Chicago," she said. "Is that west from here?" "Uh-huh." "Then yep, that's where we're heading," I said. "Where are you from?" "Lancaster, Pennsylvania." You going to take the train too? She said, my daddy is. Folks say there's work out west, so he's going to try again. So you're going to wait here for him? Uh-huh. She was real fast at washing the dishes, but I noticed that she got kind of slow and was touching my hand a lot when it came to giving them to me. She said, where's my mama and daddy? My mother died 4 years ago. Sorry to hear that. It's okay. She didn't suffer or nothing. So where's your daddy? I think he lives in Grand Rapids. I never met him. Sorry to hear that. Shucks. She held right onto my hand when she said that. I squirmed my hand loose and said, that's okay too. Deez, no, it's not. And you should quit pretending that it is. Who said I'm pretending anything? I know you are, and my daddy says family is the most important thing there is. That's why me and my mama are going to wait together for him to come back or wait for us to come to him. I said, my mother said the same thing. The family should be there for each other all the time. She always used to tell me that no matter where I went or what I did, she'd be there for me, even if she wasn't somewhere that I could see her. She told me, shucks, there's some folks who have you running your mouth before you know what you're doing. I quit talking and acted like I was having a real hard time drying the tin can she had just handed me. What'd she tell you, bud? I looked at Diza Malone and figured I'd never see her again in my life, so I kept shooting off my mouth. She would tell me every night before I went to sleep that no matter what happened, I could sleep knowing that there had never been a little boy anywhere, anytime, who was loved more than she loved me. She told me that as long as I remembered that, I'd be okay. And you knew it was the truth, just as much as I know my name's Bud, not Buddy. She said, don't you have no other kin here in Flint? No. I guess I can't blame you for wanting to ride the rails. My mama says these poor kids on the road all alone are like dust in the wind. But I guess you're different, aren't you, Bud? I guess you sort of carry your family around inside of you, huh? I guess I do. Inside my suitcase, too. She said, so you've been staying in an orphanage since your mama died? What makes you say that? Well, you're kind of skinny, but I can tell by the way you talk and the way you act that you haven't been out on the road very long. You still look young. I said, shucks, I'm not all that young. I'm going to be 11 on November 14th, and I'm not skinny, I'm wiry. Some folks think I'm a hero. So Mr. Hero, we're the same age, but you have been staying in an orphanage. I've been staying in a home. My daddy says being on the road ain't fit for a dog, much less a kid. How come you don't just go back to your orphanage? She started up touching my hand too much again. Diza Malone seemed like she was all right, so I came clean with her. Don't tell no one, but I lit out from a foster home, so I'm on the lam. And I wouldn't go back to the home even if I could. It's getting to there's too many kids in there. So that's better than being cold and hungry all the time and dodging the railroad police. What do you mean? You don't think they just let people jump on the trains, do you? Well, I guess I hadn't thought about it. See, I knew you were too nice to have been out on the road. You're going to have a bad surprise tomorrow morning. That won't bother me too much, she said. Oh yeah, I forgot, you're a hero to some folks. When Diza smiled, a little dimple jumped up in her brown cheek. I didn't answer. I just kept drying tin cans. We got to the last 4 or 5 tin can plates, and Diza said, you have a kiss a girl at the orphanage? Uh-oh, are you kidding? No, why? Are you afraid of girls? You must be kidding. She said, okay, and closed her eyes and mushed her lips up and leaned close to me. Dangy, if I didn't kiss her, she'd think I was scared of girls. If I did kiss her, she might blab or Bugs might see me and tell strangers about what happened. I looked down the creek to where Bugs and the other boys were still splashing in the water. It was dark enough that I didn't think they could see us too good. I scooched my lips up and mashed my face on Diza Malone's. We stuck like that for a hot second, but it felt like a long time. When I opened my eyes and pulled back, Diza kept hers closed and smiled. She looked down and stuck her hand in mine again, and this time I let her keep it there. She looked out at the creek and the woods on the other side and said, isn't this romantic? I looked out to see what she was talking about. The only thing I could see was the moon like a big egg yolk way up in the sky. You could hear the water and the sound of the mouth organ man playing a sad song back in Hooverville. I sneaked another peek at Diza's dimple. She said, you hear that? That's Shenandoah he's playing. Isn't it pretty? I guess so. Do you know the words? Listen. It's been 7 long years since I've seen her. Way hey, you rolling river, been 7 long years since I've last seen her. Way hey, I'm bound away, cross them wide, miss array. I said, yep, that's a sad song. I didn't think it was pretty at all. She squeezed my hand and said, isn't it? It's about an Indian man and woman who can't see each other for 7 years. But in all that time, they still lay in love. They still stay in love no matter what happens. It reminds me of my mother and brother. Your dad's been gone for 7 years before? She looked out over the creek like the big eggy moan had her hypnotized. I pulled my hand from hers and said, well, that's just about it for the dishes. She smiled again. Bud, I'll never forget this night. I didn't tell her, but I probably wouldn't forget it either. had practiced on the back of my hand before, but this was the first time I had ever busted slob with a real live girl. We loaded all the dishes in the box and walked down to Bugs and the other kid. We put their dishes on top of ours and headed back. I'm just gonna pause to see how much we have left. Okay. Okay. Bug said, "How come you're looking so strange, Bud? You look like you've been chunked in the head with a rock." Giza Malone laughed, and for a second I thought she was going to rat me out. I said, "I don't know. I guess that song is making me kind of sad." Bug said, "Yeah, it is kind of sad." Okay, let's stop here. So we said earlier that the setting of a story impacts the plot of the story, what happens in the story. What events have taken place and how are those events influenced by the setting? Go for Jada Lee. Okay, 1 second, Jada Lee, it's not unmuting you. Jada Lee, check to see if your mic is on. I can't unmute you. Going to someone else in the meantime.
Wait, I got it, I think.
Okay, all right, go ahead, Jay.
What was the question again?
What are the most recent events in the story? Mama, can you get Fatima, please?
The most,
And sorry, Jada Lee, what are the most recent events and how are they impacted by the setting?
the most recent events are impacted by the setting because Bud was going on the train, like he went on the train with Bugs, so that leaded him into Hooverville, and then that's what happened when he met all the other people and he was treated with food.
Add on?
Me?
Oh no, someone else.
Okay.
Liana, can you hear me? Liana Feliz? Okay, can't get to her mic. Raymond, can you hear me? Raymond? Okay. Let's go to Krishlin. Add on, Krishlin.
I like to add on that what was the question again?
Sure, we were talking about how what events took place in the story and how the setting impacted those events.
The setting impacted those events because since they went to Hooverville, they met a lot of new people, like Jada Lee. They met new people, and then also, but Bud got to tell Giza his story.
Beautiful,
about what?
Yeah, Bud got an opportunity to share, which he hadn't really had before now, and that happened because he was able to make a friend in the Hooverville. How would this part of the story have been different if the setting changed, if they were not in the Hooverville? Sorry, my computer is freezing, slowing us down a little. Okay. Lacey?
How the story would have been different if, well, wait, can you repeat the question?
Sure. How might the this part of the story, how might the plot have been different if the setting were changed?
Okay, so the plot of the story would have been different if the setting has changed because if the setting here, if the setting here in this part of the story that we were reading in Whoville, if it wasn't here, then like the people in Whoville wouldn't be there, and then it would be like it would either be just it would be an entire different place or something else that Bugs and Bud would have gotten to, and they probably wouldn't have gotten the help that they needed, and they wouldn't have been helped.
Great. Alrighty. So today we're gonna stop here. Please finish reading the rest of this chapter independently. I'm going to copy this link and send it to the chat so that everybody has it. But as you're continuing to read this book and all fiction in general, just remember the importance of the setting. We determine the setting by looking at specific details in the text, and we understand its importance by thinking about what events or how the plot of the story might change if the setting changed. Alrighty. Right now we have our next break. Some of you will be receiving reading conference calls. We are logging in again at 2:25 here for number stories. Yeah, any last thoughts, Mr. Fontanez, Mr. Wiggins, before we end this class?
Yeah, so one more thing. So some people don't have their names. So I want to make sure that Kai, Mawalia, Taraji, and Marcus are all absent.
Okay, so if you are one of those scholars and you're here, you need to make sure you have the correct name up so we know who you are. Okay. All right, anything else?
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of if you get a message to me, it's going to be to just correct something, like to set up yourself on camera or to even turn your camera on. So you will get private messages from me or whoever is, or maybe sometimes misconnected, just trying to fix some minor things. So make sure you're on the lookout for that, as well as making sure you're staying focused as you learn.
Yeah, and teachers are messaging you. You are not messaging a teacher though, unless it's an emergency where you can't, you don't know what material to use or something important like that. Alrighty, bye, 4th grade. We'll see you again later.
I'm really. It was my fault when I was touching on that girlfriend. But okay, I was a perfect that. It wasn't. But I really took down the